Ignore this here. It's wood. Um, I'm making a video on fabrics because I thought of it. These are all the fabrics I could think of that I have that I can think of in the last 10 minutes. I'm totally missing a lot of important and valuable fabrics. This is a pretty big chunk of them though, so I'll probably make either an addendum or a part 2 to this video at some point. So yeah, this is a video on valuable fabrics and desirable fabrics. I shouldn't say valuable because they don't necessarily add value, though they do normally add either demand or value. Important fabrics to know about as a clothing reseller. So we'll start off with probably one of the most common fabrics that you're going to find that is particularly valuable or in demand in the warmer months, and that is the fabric linen. This is a Banana Republic 100% linen large red shirt. Banana Republic, I only ever pick up when it's 100% linen, with the rare exceptions of like other materials basically that I will get into later on in the video. But yeah, 100% linen. Linen is a much lighter fabric than cotton, at least in my experience. It feels lighter. It's moisture wicking in the sense that it's sort of, I don't know what it does exactly, but it makes you cool off. It's a lot cooler to wear in the summer and in the dry heat, in the heat in general, than standard cotton is, and so it generally skyrockets in demand during summer and then sort of falls in demand, although it's generally more in demand than cotton even in the winter. So I figured I'd just start off with that. We'll go with another particular value add fabric that I guess is definitely way more common than linen. In fact, it's a crazy common fabric. It's just denim, basic denim. Denim is, of course, a fabric type that is derived from cotton. You know, now it's like cotton poly spandex blends a lot, but it's generally refers to this blue, or it's traditionally blue dyed. You can have blacks, you can have grays, you can have browns. Blue is the traditional, as you know, and it's generally darker on the outside, lighter on the inside. This is Ariat, by the way. Really, really solid jeans brand. And though it's not a huge value add in jeans, because if it's not denim, it's not jean. In other things, such as a denim shirt, a denim jacket, those generally are going to be more valuable than their standard cotton, not denim counterparts in the same brand. So if you find denim that's not jeans, it's probably valuable. Jeans in general are probably a bit more valuable than other categories of clothing, and they're in more demand because they are probably the single most popular clothing item in the world by quite a bit. And then a sister to denim, this is what's known as chambray. So the difference between denim and chambray is a couple things. First of all, chambray has a slightly different like visual texture than denim. It almost always has this sort of chino texture. You can't see that, but it has the texture of like chino shorts. Not the twill ones, but the ones with like the little dots sort of texture. It's a lot lighter than denim is in almost every circumstance, and often an easy way to tell is the inside and the outside are going to be the same color. That's always true of chambray. It's also sometimes true of denim, so that's not a perfect way to tell chambray from denim, but it works 99% of the time. I've only had one time where it ended up being denim and it was the same color on both sides. And that was easy to tell it wasn't chambray because it was heavy. Chambray is never heavy, at least as far as I know. It's kind of like linen. It's kind of like a cotton linen. It's a very lightweight, sort of breathable fabric that is more desirable than standard, just basic, cotton that isn't chambray. Denim is probably slightly more desirable than chambray, though. This is actually a Mountain Hardwear chambray shirt, which I've not seen before, but I picked it up because it was $1. Okay, moving into the synthetics again, we're getting two fabrics in one. I guess this one doesn't have to be synthetic. The first one is, this is an Orvis shirt, but this is flannel. So flannel is traditionally made from wool, and it's a very soft fabric that's almost synonymous with plaid. very rarely find flannel pieces that aren't plaid, but they're not synonymous. It's just a very, very soft fabric that doesn't have to be made from wool. It can be made from cotton. It could probably even be made from polyester, now that I think about it. I don't know if that's ever been true, but you find a lot of cotton flannel pieces. Wool flannel is generally going to be much more valuable than cotton flannel, but flannel in general is slightly more valuable, and it's a lot more in demand in the winter, kind of like linen is in the summer. Of course, because it's heavier and because it's warmer, because it's softer. I think they use flannel to teach babies what soft is or something sometimes. It's a solid fabric to pick up, especially in a brand like Orvis. Orvis flannel shirts, Wrangler flannel shirts even, LL Bean flannel shirts, Levi's Pearl Snap flannel shirts, all those do particularly well in the winter for me. And I will even pick them up for $5 because they just do that well. And now I'm going to transition from that, using the same shirt, into a similar fabric that is made from polyester called fleece. So this is the inside of the shirt, and that's fleece right there. You could barely see it, but it's like this very soft polyester fabric that is the fleece of sheep is probably what, or of lambs is probably what it's modeled after, I would assume. That's why they call it fleece, right? Not exactly the most valuable fabric in the world, however, you know, it's going to be in like North Face fleeces, Patagonia fleeces, just that sort of soft, vaguely soft sweaters, vests, sweatshirts, that type of thing. That's what fleece is. And I only bring it up because I happen to have fleece on the inside of this, and because there are cases where fleeces can be valuable. And I am very biased in this because I found a vintage Patagonia fleece, probably the most rare fleece that Patagonia ever made. I sold it for $220 plus shipping. I had it up for $400 for 3 months. Someone offered me $220. I accepted. That is a very rare case. Vintage Patagonia fleeces in general are valuable. That was not an Aztec, by the way. It has a diagonal pocket. If you ever find a Patagonia fleece with a diagonal pocket, pick it up. It's worth the big bucks. But that probably will never apply to anybody who ever watches this, except me. I just went on a rant, didn't I? Yeah. So yeah, fleece, valuable in Patagonia if it's vintage. It's just nice to the feel, and I don't know, I decided to include it because I happen to have a fleece piece right here. Okay, moving on to a different type of fabric. These are Columbia cargo pants, and they're convertible pants because they have the zippers. That's not important to this video though. What's important to this video is, I want you to look. You can tell. There's sort of a grid pattern on the fabric of these pants. That grid pattern, if you find a grid pattern on like hiking pants, a grid pattern that's like, you know, sort of pretty faint, and when you look at it close, you can see it. That's reinforced fabric made of either nylon or polyester normally. It's called Ripstop fabric. It's generally a value add, probably a demand add to your piece. Again, you find it most in hiking clothing, hiking pants particularly. It's just reinforced, and using the keyword generally accelerates the sale. At least in my experience, that's been the case. Just figured I'd throw that in there. Another fabric, this one's not really, I don't know, I assume it's not synthetic. It doesn't really have a tie. It's canvas. So canvas is basically like the closest that you get to denim without actually being denim. At least that's how I think of it. You get heavy canvas jackets. It's literally like a painter's canvas is how I would think of it. Just this, it's a thick, heavy, stiff material that feels like rough. It feels strong. It feels sturdy. I don't know how to describe it. That's what canvas is. Canvas stuff. Canvas jackets, canvas pants. These are canvas cargo pants from PacSun. Really high demand on these particularly. Not always in high demand, but canvas in general is going to be a bit more valuable than a standard, again, cotton, twill, khaki type thing. It is not universally valuable, but canvas jackets in particular are normally valuable. Not always, but pretty commonly canvas jackets are valuable. I think probably because it's not exactly the easiest fabric to create, and most times when you create it, it's not going to be cheap. At least it just doesn't feel cheap. It feels like quality fabric, and so it normally is. This is not a good example of the next fabric, but the next fabric that I'm going to be talking about is corduroy. So I wish I had a good corduroy piece. This is the closest I have. It is corduroy, but it's a very thin corduroy. It's almost a twill. So you see the sort of ribbing on it. That is a very fine corduroy. It's a pair of Levi's jeans, actually. I didn't know they did corduroy jeans, but yeah, Levi's 517s, and these are corduroy because of that ribbing that you see. Often you will find much bigger ribs on like sport coats, you know, blazers, like vintage blazers. You'll find corduroy. Those are really thick. It's like bumps pretty much. In the sport coats and in jeans too, in pants, particularly in jeans, corduroy is a pretty big value add. These I have up for $35. If they weren't corduroy, probably wouldn't break $25. So in certain circumstances, corduroy can be quite valuable. Again, in the sport coats and jeans, they're probably the strongest. It's not as strong as it used to be, apparently. That's what I've heard. But it's still pretty strong, and it's almost always a value add compared to a standard. I would say corduroy is probably more valuable than denim in most cases. Okay, this is a fabric that I don't really hear talked about too much on reselling YouTube, although you hear about it in fashion quite a bit. This is an Orvis shirt that is both fabrics that I'm talking about here, because they're quite often lumped together. It is a hemp tencel blend, or tencel blend, I don't know, or lyocell. So hemp, of course, I think the industry pioneered by Patagonia or something. Quite similar to linen in the application of it and the use of it. It's moisture wicking, generally lighter, more breathable than cotton is. It's generally in high demand. I would say hemp is generally in higher demand than linen in most cases, in my experience. And tencel, quite often, I just say tencel because it's sort of in the same group of linen, hemp, and tencel. It's not quite as valuable as either of those two, but I figured I'd just include it because this is, you know, that it's made from wood pulp. And again, it's the same thing as linen and hemp, just not, you know, more breathable, moisture wicking, all that, lighter. Not quite as valuable as the other two. Probably goes tencel, linen, then hemp as the best out of those fabrics. Yeah, relatively solid fabric. Still not great, but more valuable than cotton. Hemp is certainly more valuable than cotton. These have 5x sell-through on eBay. Orvis is not normally 5x sell-through, if you couldn't tell. Okay, we're now going to get into some quite valuable fabrics. So the first one here that I have, I'm going to have two sport coats here. This is a really thick, heavy, hand-knit sport coat made by this brand, Harris Tweed. Harris Tweed does tweed fabric, if you couldn't believe it. Tweed is the thing that I'm talking about. It's this really thick, heavy, very scratchy, if you feel it, it's like it's got burrs and little fabric coming all over it. It's not always, it's very commonly vintage. Harris Tweed is entirely vintage. I'm pretty sure they went out of business in the 90s or something, or the 2000s. In sport coats, tweed, which is 95% of the time going to be Harris Tweed, is pretty much universally valuable in my experience. I've never found a tweed piece that isn't valuable, unless it's like I don't know, like a Stafford Harris Tweed isn't that valuable, but you could probably still sell it for like $40. That's shipped. And now, so yeah, that's a pretty valuable fabric. Doesn't really add demand, but it does add value. We're getting into two very valuable fabrics. I guess I could talk about Petunia before we do those, because I don't have Petunia. None of you are ever going to find Petunia. It's the most valuable fabric in the world. You can look up videos on it. You're never going to find it, so know about it. But yeah, okay. So the first fabric that I'm going to be talking about here, this is the only time I've ever found 100% of it so far. This is a 3-button sport coat, and it is, drum roll please, let's see, 100% cashmere. Cashmere is the finest wool, and And it is, I believe, the longest fiber wool as well. It's universally, 100% cashmere is universally valuable. Everything 100% cashmere, I would pick it up. You can get it, for reasonable price. A sport coat like that is very valuable. If you found like a Brioni cashmere sport coat, could be like $500. One of the most valuable fabrics that you will typically find, because you do find cashmere periodically, unlike Petunia. And yeah, super, super valuable. Everything 100% cashmere. As I've said, pick it up. And stuff with its cashmere blend, you can use that to utilize the word cashmere in the title, which is generally going to let you sell it for more. It's going to have the word cashmere, which is a pretty strong keyword. And even if it's only like 30% cashmere, that does add value as compared to a standard wool. Okay, and we're going to get to the final, well actually no, this is the second to last fabric, because I do want to talk about one final fabric at the end that I saved at the end, not because it's most valuable, but because it's my favorite to find. This is not that. This is not a fabric in a sense, this is a filling. So the fillings generally are going to have polyester / nylon, feather, and then down. So down filling is the most, I would say pretty much the most desirable in most brands. Filling, it's not as pointy as feathers are, but it is certainly, it doesn't disintegrate like polyester does. It's very warm, very desirable. This is a Patagonia girls down-filled puffer jacket that I've listed for $100, and it's probably going to be gone in the next couple of days because a lot of people are watching it. Down-filled stuff in general is valuable. Over 50% down, I would just probably pick it up universally. Even something like an H&M down-filled puffer jacket probably is worth at least like 30 or 40 bucks. Crazy, crazy valuable. Really, 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 really strong. Just, yeah, down in general. Pick it up. And finally, I have saved my favorite fabric for last because, well, I love the brands that are associated with this fabric. So the fabric that I'm talking about is Merino wool. So Merino wool is like a thinner, longer fiber, smoother, softer, etc. wool that is not necessarily more valuable than wool. However, what is more valuable than wool is performance merino wool. Now, what differentiates that? Actually, it's probably brand. Performance merino wool brands, the trifecta of which, the triumvirate of which, I'm not going to say Holy Trinity because it's blasphemous. The best brands to find, I guess, you know what, I found a better piece merino wool than these three brands, but I'm going to ignore that. The best brand to find for merino wool, the best ones are Icebreaker merino wool, Smart Wool, and Ibex. The final of which I have here, I showed this in a haul, Ibex, 100 made in USA, size extra large, 100% merino wool base layer t-shirt thingy. That's up for $40 with holes in it. Merino wool is my favorite fabric to find by far because I only ever find it in those performance merino wool pieces. I never ever find J. Crew merino wool. I don't know why. Merino wool, Poggin. Just an amazing fabric. I love to find it. If you find those brands, pick them up in general. Don't even have to be merino wool. Anything of those three brands, Ibex, Smart Wool, and Icebreaker, pick them up. I guess I'll gloat over this one too, even though I already gloated over it in a haul video. Kuiu, Kuiu, 85% merino wool, base layer, size 3XL. This is, the brand is stronger than the merino wool. Kuiu is probably one of the strongest brands. It's like the Arc'teryx of hunting gear. Yeah. That's it. That was a really, really sort of jumbled, thrown together video. It's, I think, like 9 or 10 o'clock right now. I'm tired. I decided to make this video. May not have been a smart idea, but if you watched it, thank you.